Welcome to Second Chapter, Unforgettable Career Stories Podcast. I'm Karen Sharp-Price, and I'm so glad you're here. Back in 2020, I launched a podcast called SharpHR Career Corner. The goal was simple, to create a library of real conversations with people in all kinds of roles across industries sharing their career stories. Over 3 years, in 53 episodes, those stories became a reminder that there's no real single path to a meaningful career. Now I'm back with a new mini-series, Second Chapter. This is for those of you who love the original podcast and for those just finding us for the first time. Since COVID, I've noticed something powerful. So many people have paused, reflected, and realized that life is just too short to stay stuck in work that doesn't fit anymore. Second Chapter is about those moments, the pivots, the risks, the brave decisions to choose work that actually feels meaningful. These are real stories from real people who dared to change direction and start their next chapter. I hope you enjoy. Hello everyone. Today's conversation is with Michael Olinger, often referred to as Mo by his close friends. He spent 24 years in funeral services as a licensed funeral director, manager, before beginning his second career as a financial advisor. Welcome, Michael. Thanks for being here today.
Yeah, thanks for having me, Karen.
I think your story is super interesting. I think people are really going to take a lot from it because there's a lot of people I find since COVID that found out that, life is too short and I'm really not happy in my career and I really want to make a change, but I don't even know where to begin. And sometimes they think, well, what else can I do? I'm
Right.
kind of in this lane and I'm pretty stuck. I think your story is going to show people that nobody's really stuck. And you just need to take that first step. I think the first step is always the hardest step. So 24
Totally.
years, I can't believe it, 24 years in funeral services. So just to
Yeah.
begin, for those listening right now who might not really know, what were your major responsibilities and the emotional demands? I'm sure that there were a lot as a licensed funeral director.
Yeah. So, physical demands, things that I had to do were things I actually started in college, working summers and holidays as essentially a janitor or a director's assistant. I was delivering flowers, washing cars, vacuuming, doing things like that. And then eventually helping the licensed funeral directors. I might be parking cars on a service or helping to set up flowers or eventually even kind of helping them with dressing and things like that I was allowed to do and kind of exposed to the whole preparation of the deceased thing. So it started there in college. And then eventually, once I was a licensed director, after I'd gone through my bachelor's degree and then my mortuary college, then I got into, I was on call a lot, removing the decedent from wherever they passed away at, whether it was at home, whether it was a hospital, a hospice, doing all of the embalming and preparation, cosmetics, dressing, positioning a casket. We had a crematory, so we had cremation operations as well that I was responsible for. We had a cemetery operation, so there was cemetery issues to be dealt with. And then I also designed monuments and markers for cemeteries. So you put all that together, let alone then the arranging flowers, doing arrangements with the family, making the connections, the phone calls, emails, that type of thing, the paperwork, showing families in and helping with visitations, and then moving over either to a church or the funeral home, running the service or memorial service, and if there's a burial service. So it was a pretty broad category of all the things I did.
Yeah.
The last 6 or 7 years I was in it, I was in management type situation. So doing all those things, but helping others do it, keeping the funeral home going.
So I,
As
I
far
want,
as,
I'm sorry, I just
go
want to
ahead.
take one step back because,
Yeah.
so you went to college for it, but was somebody in the family that had a
No.
funeral home? Like, where did this idea come from at such a young age?
Yeah. So my college degree, my undergraduate degree, I went to college for musical theater. On a vocal scholarship. And after a year of that, I was like, this is not something that I think I'm going to continue with. And I ended up in radio, television broadcasting and thought that maybe I would want to be a meteorologist or an anchor person. By the time I was ready to graduate, it was like, I don't want to do this. I don't want anything to do with the media. What was I thinking? But it was communications overall, and I've always been a communicator. No one in my family has ever had anything to do with the funeral home. I think my mother or my grandparent, they all thought I was nuts, I think, wanting to do it. But my grandmother died when I was a junior in high school out in Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania. And no, I wasn't. I was a freshman in college. Anyhow, she passed away, and I was kind of bored while I was there. So I ended up talking to the funeral director, and he was telling me all about the embalming process. And it was fascinating to me. My grandma was very sick, but yet she looked pretty good, and it was sort of mystical to me.
Yeah.
So he told me about a book talking about the principles, practices of embalming. I found it at my college library. I read it cover to cover. I'm not even a book guy. I was pretty fascinated, and I'd been around funeral homes because I sang in high school and college at funerals, weddings, things like that, because I was a vocalist. So I'd been around it, never thought about it. And our local pianist, organist, was the person that worked at the funeral home. She said, "You should really talk to the owners. I think you'd be great to get involved in this." So I went, talked to him, and then sort of begged for a summertime job to learn about it and fell in love with it. It just seemed like a really good fit for me.
That is really interesting because there's so many young people these days that really don't know what path they want to take, and
Yeah.
it's simple life experiences where you just happen to have a conversation, which
Yeah.
then led you down a road. And I just think that that's really interesting. As long as, and for young people that are listening, as long as you just keep your options open and you
Yes.
don't really cross anything off, but you kind of dive in if you're curious, and you were at the time,
Yeah.
you dove in to learn more, and as you learned, it sounds like momentum started to kick in.
Yeah, it was fascinating to
Yeah.
me. I was afraid of death, honestly.
Hmm.
The very first day that I worked, they put me on call in the evening, and two of the funeral directors called me in the middle of the night and said, "Put on dress clothes and get here in 10 minutes." And we went out to a home. Somebody had passed away there. Hospice was there with them. And one of the directors said, "Put on these gloves and lift the body with us." It was like trial by fire. I was terrified, but it was like I was facing a fear and yet something that was very interesting to me. But it felt rewarding right away. I was like, this is something that very few people can do.
Yeah.
And I had this really what seemed like an odd skill set that I could do something like that. So,
Yeah, that's amazing. It really
yep.
is. Such a long and dedicated career. I mean, you're passionate about it. You were all the way through. You kept learning. You kept growing within.
Yeah.
So, can you pinpoint a moment of time when the idea of making a significant change started to take root?
I would say probably the last 5 to 6 years, I was really burned out. I was tired. We did over 700 funerals a year. I wasn't involved in all of them, but the on-call and obviously the emotional toll that it takes on you working with people with grief and loss. But there's also kind of that environment at a funeral home, and it is not specific to any funeral home. I think it's kind of that general environment when there's that kind of stress and lack of sleep and everything else. It is not always an emotionally healthy place to be. So I got to the point, my dad had always wanted to run his own business and did in the last 10 or 15 years of his life. And that was kind of important to me. I was like, I really want to be able to run the show. I had my own ideas of business, this and that. And I worked for some really fantastic people that treated me really well. But it just got to the point I had different ideas on how I thought the business ought to be run and what they did. Um, and so I started thinking about, what else could I do? Could I franchise a business and look out into it? So on the side, I was doing that. I was having conversations with people, where could this go? Because I knew the toll it was taking on me, I think subconsciously. I was not the best version of me, that's for sure.
Hmm.
So yeah, I thought a lot about it. I wasn't sure what I wanted to do. And my big thing that I think held me back was I didn't think I had a skill set outside of embalming and things that were funeral related, which was not the case at all. But that kind of held me back. And that's when I started thinking about it a lot more. And then when I finally did, I called it my occupational divorce, where I think we were both just done. I took some time to talk to a lot of people. My wife called it my sabbatical. Um, and I took several months. We were good savers. And so I took time, talked with friends I had in the business community. I had a friend that took me to Rotary with her. I talked to a lot of pastor friends that I had. And my conversation over coffee with them was always, what would you see me doing? Where could I be helpful in something, my skill set? Oddly enough, the one that kept coming up was, well, have you ever thought about like wealth management or financial advising? And I'd say,
Hmm.
no, like I don't have a degree in finance. Why would I be thinking about that? But it came up again and again and again and again. So I think that was kind of part of what was behind it. And then I have a cousin who is now my business partner who brought me into the financial advising business. And he reached out to me and said, have you ever thought of being a financial advisor? I was like, oh my gosh, how many times do I have to say this? Like, he wanted to come to town for dinner. He had some clients here, and he said, let's have dinner, and I'll tell you about it. And I said, yeah, yeah, well, I'll have dinner with you, but I'm not doing that. We talked for like 4 hours, and
Wow.
I started to look at things very differently, and that's, I think, when my eyes opened up to it. But it
Huh.
was really that catalyst of being burned out, wanting to do something different, run my own business.
And again, it starts with a conversation
Yes.
that you had that kind of planted a seed, and then that
Yep.
seed just started to take off as more people started to kind of align, I think, with the same idea.
Yeah.
That, yeah, that's it's such a lesson right there because I think that people are kind of afraid to get out there and talk and
Yeah.
but that is the way to figure this out is to have conversations with people that are out there doing it so that you can
Totally.
kind of decide whether it's a good fit or not.
Yeah, and I
um
think it's a great opportunity when you talk to people to ask them, what do they see about you? Because they saw things that I probably wouldn't have picked up on. Um, so that was a good approach as it turned out.
yep, yep. So what need do you think was your former career no longer really meeting in your life? And then what did you hope to gain by moving into the financial world
Mhm.
that you thought you weren't getting in the funeral services world?
I think the biggest thing was I needed something different. I needed a different focus.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think, probably what would be considered an industry expert in my area after doing it that way, quarter of a century.
Yeah.
Uh, but at the same time, the interest level, like I love learning. So learning about new things was one thing. The biggest was, as I had said, wanting to run my own business without a doubt. That was the biggest. The other is realistically the schedule. I wanted to have a more flexible schedule and I could own it and have a better work-life balance.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, it's funny because there's so many dedicated people in funeral service, some of which I used to work with. It is their entire identity. It's their job.
Yeah.
And I was very dedicated. I said it was my personal calling. My grandma always wanted me to be a pastor. And I thought this is my way to pastor to other people. I'm sharing my gifts with them. The issue was, though, it was literally my entire identity, everything about me. And it came first before family. It almost has to when you're in that industry. You were there to serve others at whatever time things happen. Forget about holidays, forget about kids' concerts, birthdays. It doesn't matter. You're
Yeah.
sick. You really have to be dedicated to that. So having the flexibility to run a business the way I wanted it to and to not work that kind of schedule,
Mm-hmm.
uh, that was pretty huge. So I'd say those were the biggest.
So that's why you didn't consider opening up your own funeral home.
I did probably halfway through my funeral career. I thought this would be really cool. Um, but the grind of just doing it,
Mm-hmm.
and in some ways, I think funeral service got to the point it was a little broken, just because of how businesses have been run for so many years, from family to family to family. They have always provided wonderful service, but pricing models and changes in the American society and the American way of death, so to speak, really changed the way they were run, and it changed my views on how things needed to go.
Mm,
So
okay.
no, I got to the point that wasn't the business I wanted to run. I wanted to run something that was a little more, I could be more my own entrepreneur. I could be original, market my own way, and things like that.
Okay. So the licensing part and the expertise that was required for financial advising is pretty different from the funeral service world. What was the most challenging practical step that you had to take to make that pivot?
Surprisingly, I managed to pick two businesses that are not only highly regulated, they require a lot of continuing education, huge amounts in both areas. And they both have pretty specific amounts of training, education, things like that. For me, when I got ready to transition, I already had a health insurance license, and we needed to do that in order to do pre-need sales. You were dealing with life insurance and/or annuity type products. So for the state of Iowa, I was already licensed, but I needed to pick up a health insurance license. And then I had to study for the Series 7 and Series 66, which are federally required to be able to do financial products. Different series are for different types of things. But for me, it was to be able to do investments and life insurance, annuities, disability, things like that. So to be able to do those and to be able to work with products like that, I had to do the training for that. I ended up studying for about 2.5 months to pass the health and the Series 7 and the 66. When I was finished with that, then I kind of went into a role that was a training program, where I was doing an academy program. They take you up to home office, start running you through things. And then there was several months where I had classes online that I was learning with other, people new to the industry. And I was doing joint field work with veteran financial advisors that were showing me kind of how is this done. So there was a lot. I thought funeral licensing isn't easy. There was a lot to it, harder than anything I did in college.
Mm-hmm.
This stuff blew that right out of the water. It was tough stuff. Like my brains felt like mush every night after studying.
So did you completely cut off the funeral work and
Good.
or did you slowly slide into the advising world?
No, that's a really good question. Um, I kept my license, and I kept that until 2 or 3 years ago,
Hmm.
because I thought, what's plan B here? Do I need an exit strategy, or how would I ever use that? And I thought I worked all those years. I should keep that, and so I did for quite a while. Kept up with my licensing and Con Ed. Um, but as it turned out, I got to the point I thought, I enjoy this. I know this is what I'll be doing. I'm running my own business. I don't need that. So I did not act in a funeral director's capacity in any way, especially with still living in the town, with the firm that I worked with. I had no desire to go against them for any reason. They were too good to me. But what I did do is I continued to sing at funerals once in a while, which I don't do anymore. And I also officiate once in a while. I'm a registered um, minister, so I can go out and do a memorial service or speak at a visitation or speak at a funeral or graveside.
Wow.
And I like doing that once in a while. I do weddings as well. So it was a way I still had a connection with it, but I didn't have to worry anything about any of the details other than show up and talk. So
You are such a versatile guy.
yeah,
I mean, really, you have just so many different pathways that it's just very interesting. So it seems like it's a huge shift in subject matter, at least, between the two careers. But they both require empathy and trust. So, how do the soft skills that you honed as the funeral director, like counseling families through the crisis at the moment, become an unexpected superpower in your new role as a financial
yeah,
advisor?
more than what I realized. As I said before, I remember doing a resume and I put all these things on about restorative art and cosmetics and my embalming skills and an award I'd received, all these things, even merchandising and management skills, and they were all funeral related. And so
Yeah.
when I was ready to actually look, it was like, well, I guess I can only be in funeral service. It was trying to figure out those soft skills. And so even now when I talk to clients or if they see my old funeral diploma from mortuary college, they'll see it and they'll say funeral service. And I'll say, well, that's what I used to do. And they said, boy, that is way different. Usually I'll tell them this. I said, it's not that much different when it comes down to it. Both careers Yes, empathy for sure, but they're relationship careers.
Mm,
It's human interaction, and it's not just that warmth; it's that genuine ability to connect with people.
mm-hmm.
It's also both careers. You're talking about things that are very difficult to talk about for a lot of people, death and money.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and they're things that people don't necessarily know a lot about. They're not necessarily educated on. Um, and there's emotion tied to both, huge with death, obviously, but money has emotion tied to it
Oh
as
yeah.
well. So
Mm-hmm.
very similar from that aspect. I have no fear of talking to people about anything. Um, Once you talk to people about intimate details of death and situations like that, you can pretty much talk about anything. I'm not a shy guy, so I'll talk with anybody about anything. So that was similar. In addition to that, I was dealing already with people that had life insurance issues or were going through maybe estate issues with a farm or a home or long-term care issues. As I had said, the pre-need sales were based off of like paid up annuity type things. So I was dealing with a lot of those same things, and I had helped to manage a business, and I'm now running my own business. And so again, I was kind of honing those skills without realizing it. You also have to be highly organized in both area. Um, and so I think that's important as well. So they lined up far better than I thought. The public speaking aspect,
Mm-hmm.
you have to be able to talk to people. And so going clear back to my communication stuff and high school, college, that has aligned as well. So I actually it's like I trained for a perfect career in this
Yeah.
without even realizing it. But it took me getting to that point to realize, like, how I've got these soft skills. Um, all I looked at was hard skills. I don't know any software for that. I didn't have a financial education. I didn't have these things, but I had life experience.
Mm-hmm.
So the company I work for, Thrivent, specializes, in my opinion, my words, in people who are second career individuals. And they get a certain amount of people that are right out of school with a financial degree, but I would say that the larger percentage of people, again, in my opinion, that I've seen come through here, tend to be second career people. And you can teach, I heard an old guy told me one time, he said, you can teach a monkey to do investments, but you can't teach people life experience. And I was
Yes.
like, I'm going to use that. Like that's so true. And I say it a lot. Um, you got to be really smart to do financial things, but you can't teach the human element.
No.
So being able to bring life experience to it, everybody on my team, everyone on the team have come from different walks of life.
Oh.
Basketball coach, women's college soccer coach, a nurse, a physical therapist, an undertaker, Navy veteran. You go right on down the line, a hairdresser. And they're all wonderful people. And I think what we all bring to the table,
Yeah.
same thing I do, it's the human element of experience. So,
Yeah, I think soft skills are things that you can't really train somebody to have, and the hard skills you definitely can, unless it's brain surgery. There's most of the skills that you can show somebody. And if
yep,
they have really solid soft skills, those help with the hard skills in training
100%.
somebody. Yeah.
As I've met people coming into the business, I can usually tell within an hour or two of meeting them if they're going to make it or not. And a lot of it is off of those. Do you have the people skills? Are you able to talk? Are you
Mm-hmm.
approachable? Are you a go-getter? You put those things together, it's the magic mix that you need to be successful.
Right, right. So career pivots for most people just bring a lot of self-doubt. And that's pretty much where they stop is because the self-doubt is so strong. Did you
Yeah.
face that imposter syndrome stepping into this
Oh,
newly highly specialized field?
absolutely. And it's something, as I talk with younger people that are coming into the field or newer people for that matter, I think you all feel it. As I said before, I was what some would probably call an industry expert in my area. Then you go into something that, quite frankly, you don't really know anything about.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you are giving advice and you feel like, I don't know what I'm talking about, the immediate feeling for most people is, I need to learn everything about everything or I can't give advice. Um, and so you did feel like an imposter. It's like, so now I'm a financial advisor and I have all of these titles. What does that mean? Like, what am I doing? I'm in somebody else's clothes. It took some time just to realize it was not about the product. I had veteran advisors to assist and help with that as far as that positioning to figure out where there was an opportunity to help somebody. But I had to be the glue, the connection that was there of why would you want to work with somebody? I'm a true believer in people do business with people they like, uh, and it's that comfort level. And so that's it. It's you're establishing a relationship and seeing is it a good fit for both sides. That's the part that I can do really well.
Okay.
So
So now that you're established, I mean, you just didn't do this a couple of years ago. You're really established as a financial advisor now. Looking
yeah,
back, was leaving the funeral home the right move for you?
100%. Um, I look back and I think I should have done this when I was in my 30s.
Mm.
I was in a situation, my prior marriage, mostly a single income family, and I just didn't have that confidence financially, that we could make it. And I just didn't pursue this a lot. Interestingly enough, though, Thrivent approached me when I was in my, I would say, later 30s and asked me, they said, we've talked to some people, we think you'd make a great financial advisor. And I remember saying, no, like what are you talking? Like I have a good job. This is my calling. This is what I do.
Yeah.
Uh, I had these old school ideas of what an advisor was. I didn't even really know.
Mm.
And at the same time, they had talked to two of my business partners, including my cousin, who did go on board with them. And I look back all the time and I think I should have done it sooner. So yes, it was the right move. This fits me really, really well. My dad had told me many years ago, he said, you should really work in a job that is directly sales related.
Mm.
Um, and I still don't necessarily think what we do is sales related, so to speak. It's relationship.
Mm-hmm.
But there's the financial aspect of there is the sale of a product that is involved a lot of the time. I was always afraid of, what does a commission or things like that or not having a steady paycheck look like? It was
Mm-hmm.
terrifying. Um, it doesn't terrify me anymore. There's great opportunity in it.
Okay.
So
Oh. So, what's one thing about your new career that you wish you had known before you made the leap? And was it one thing that has been just a real surprise to you?
I think the flexibility part, I knew I wanted it and I knew it would be different, but just how much I value it, um, that's pretty huge. The other part of it, I would say, is me being able to choose my own clients. When you work for a funeral home, anybody that walks in the door, they're your client.
Yeah.
They can treat you any way they want. Sometimes
Mm.
it was really poorly, and sometimes that's just grief. But sometimes people show their true colors, and they're pretty nasty. And
Mm.
that does take a toll on your staff, on you, on everything. Um, I have the ability to work with anybody I want. And so I usually tell them, that's we're going to kind of interview each other. I want to make sure that I'm a good fit, you're a good fit. At the end of the day, I want to be excited about seeing you when you come in.
Yeah.
Um, and if this feels like you're going to the dentist to get your teeth pulled, or I feel that way, it's okay. Like it's not a good fit. Let's say hi if we see each other in the grocery store, but no. So, I've even had a handful of times where I've had people that had great assets with me, but I didn't enjoy them and it's not a good fit. And it
Mm-hmm.
was very empowering to just say, this is no longer a good fit.
Yeah.
Kind of going to release you to a different future.
Yeah. You've really grown in that position to be able to get to that point where you can pick
Oh,
and
yeah,
choose. Yeah. That's,
for sure. And in the beginning, you're desperate, of anybody to talk to me or work with me or just listen to me.
mm-hmm.
Mine was especially tough because I come from a pretty small town and
Mm-hmm.
I would say known as the town undertaker. Like that's who you go to. So as I talk to people about I'd love to talk to you, they're like, but you're the one that buried my mom and grandma. Like, why would I come talk to you about that?
Yeah.
So it's hard to get inside other people's brains, let alone my own.
Yeah. And
Uh,
rebrand yourself.
it really has been a rebranding.
Mm-hmm.
And it's taken being able to tell a story very similar to this about why do I do what I do, or even, how I came into my own financial sense, as a young person and the history with my parents and getting my first 401k and my interest in investments and all of that just to make people realize it is the journey that's important, uh,
Yes.
not the piece of paper that says I went to a school for it.
Mm-hmm.
So,
Absolutely. So, for someone that's listening to us right now with 10 or 15 years into a comfortable career,
yeah.
but it's unfulfilling, what is the single most important piece of advice that you would give them before they decide to make their own transformation?
I think the biggest thing is to take a leap of faith. Um, Depend on others, reach out to them, ask them. If you're not feeling it, to feel like you're obligated to stay there or you are chained to a paycheck or situationally, really enslaved, think outside that box, take a leap of faith and try something different. It's empowering. Um, I think it enlightened me in so many ways and it brought me a lot of, I think, positivity in my life. I feel like I'm closer to the version of me I always thought I would be as a younger person than what I grew into. And it wasn't intentional. I think it was just circumstances as I went through. I wasn't the best version of me when I was working at the funeral home. Um, and like I said, that had very little to do with anybody or anything specific. It was me. I just wasn't in a great place. And I think this has helped me get to a better place and do a lot of soul searching and just a lot of learning about myself as well as being able to put together my business piece by piece. I had to get very comfortable with being uncomfortable. And that isn't just in the learning process, but there's something about that to be willing to stand in a vulnerable position and to say, I am so out of my element right now. It's like facing that fear. It was kind of like that first night that I was there picking up that decedent with the other directors. It was like, jump in. And I did that. And you're kind of emotionally naked standing there like, this is so uncomfortable, but making yourself comfortable and realizing this is the only way I'm going to find growth and change is if I can get comfortable with being uncomfortable. I think I also got past the idea that I had to love what I do and it did not need to be my identity. I really didn't have hobbies, so to speak, previously. I had things I enjoyed, but not really a hobby. I'm really active in community theater now. I'm an actor, performer, and I couldn't do that with a schedule like that. And yet I've come back to that. That's my hobbies. That's my thing is theater. So being able to do that, and that's a big part of me, and it doesn't have to be that my career is everything. I do enjoy what I do. I especially enjoy the people I do it with, but it doesn't need to be everything to me. And I think that was part of the acknowledgement as well, is figuring out that just needs to be what I do for sustenance. And I can feel passionate about it, but it does not need to define me.
That is, that is the, I guess, goal for most people is you don't have to find everything in that one role. You have, I mean, just from the way you described what you do and where you're at, and then the side gigs that you have a full life of doing lots of different things that you actually really all enjoy each part of it.
Yep. The things that moving on and doing something different. I came from that generation where I thought I will always have the same job from when I start to when I retire. And moving away from that was terrifying and weird. And yet at the same time, there was something inside me telling me you need to be doing something different. Like this is not healthy for you. So yeah, but it brought so much enjoyment being able to do these things different. It took me a while for my kids to realize this. It was like they thought I was playing charades or something or dress up. Let alone, like I said, people in the community, things like that. But it took me a while too to feel like I'm actually, I am a financial advisor. I am helping people be smart with their money. I'm a good person to give that advice to because I can help somebody.
That's
So
that's great.
it's fulfilling. It's a really good thing.
Yeah, I think your story in your second chapter is really going to resonate with a lot of people. And I'm so glad that you were able to come on and tell your story. Thank you so much for your time. I really do appreciate this.
Absolutely. It's something that I didn't realize was as valuable of a story until I've started to tell it to people. And yeah, I encourage a lot of people, clients, friends, everybody to think about that. That change in life is so empowering. So happy to talk with you about it. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, and it's a great story. Like I love your story. So, and I know that a lot of people are gonna really get a lot out of it. And those that are just sitting on the fence and have been for a while, they just need to be tipped a little bit in the right direction.
Interestingly enough, when I was making my final decisions on would I come over and do this, I had like three different things happen. I had I went to a spiritualist event with my wife, and I was like, oh, it's entertainment, whatever. And as they're moving around the room talking about, oh, there's somebody coming through, there's somebody talking to us, they settled in my part of the room and started talking about, does anybody know a Chuck? Does anybody know a Charlie? And no, no, no. And the lady stopped and pointed at me and she goes, it's definitely you. Do you have somebody by that name? And I said, well, I have an uncle, Charles, and said, yeah, that's who it is. He says you're ready to start a new business and it has something to do with finance.
Wow, that gave me chills.
Well, it gave me chills, and I was like, all right, this is wacky that she knows this kind of stuff. And I said, yeah. And she says, he says, you're hesitant. You need to do this. Like, he's looking out for this. This is the smart thing for you to do. I was a skeptic. I was like, yeah, okay, well, that's pretty weird, but kind of
Wow.
unique. Right after that, though, my cousin Jeff, who brought me on board, here to Thrive, had told me he had done a podcast with my current business coach talking about his career change and the things that had shifted. And he said, I think you should listen to this. I listened to it, and it was like somebody was telling my story. The burnout, the feelings of wanting to run your own business, the not having the right skills, not having the financial education. It was as if somebody was telling my own story.
Hmm.
So that, and then the night before I actually had my interview to accept the job, my wife and I had Chinese takeout. And I opened up a fortune cookie. I still have it. And it said, your business is about to thrive. And thrive was in capital letters. I don't know if I believe in fate or anything like that, but it was like, all right, I felt like God's trying to beat me over the head with a 2x4 here. There's all these things. There's some vision of what's aligning. So
Yes.
yeah, it was unique that this kind of a podcast, again, that was done identically like this,
Uh-huh.
was like my story. So I hope somebody does hear it. And I hope they say, my goodness, maybe that's me.
Yeah.
Maybe I need to give it a shot. Maybe I take that leap of faith.
Yeah, that's amazing. And those were three signs, like right in a row. So somebody was definitely trying to get your attention.
Yeah. After which my wife said, I've been telling you for years you should do financial stuff. And she's right. I just wasn't listening.
Yeah, we don't listen to the closest people around us.
I should. She's right.
Well, thank you again. I really do appreciate your time. And for those that are listening, if you like these types of stories, leave a comment, subscribe to my channel, and thank you for spending time with us today. Let's be kind out there. It starts with you and I. Have a great day.